Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the weekly press briefing of the Kosovo Specialist Chambers, where we aim to provide journalists with the latest developments at the court and the opportunity to ask questions. In the case of Pjata Shala, the trial panel decided on 8 November that the reparation order will be pronounced on Friday, 29th November at 11 in the morning in public session and in the presence of Mr. Shala. 8 victims participated in the proceedings in this case. This will be the second reparation order issued in a war crimes case by a trial panel of the Specialist Chambers. The trial panel in this case on 7th November granted a request by Victims' Counsel to allow for a partial variation of protective measures in regards to a participating victim who is also a witness. The panel found that the requested disclosure will not pose a risk to the victim or their family. The panel also noted that the victim expressed their consent and that the prosecution was not opposed. On 13th November, the appeals chamber granted in part a request by the prosecution and Victims' Counsel and extended their time limit to file their responses to Mr. Shala's appeals brief to 17th January 2025. The panel based its decision on staff limitations during the judicial recess period. Mr. Shala is expected to file his appeal brief by 25th November 2024. The start of the trial in the case of Sabit Yanuzi, Ismet Bakhtiari and Haji Shala, which were scheduled for 14th November, was adjourned by the trial panel on 12th November, following a request by the parties. The accused are charged with obstructing official persons in performing official duties and intimidation during criminal proceedings. On 11th November, the trial panel granted a request by the prosecution to amend its exhibits list and add 6 supplemental reports from an external forensic institute and a note related to a video recording. The panel considered that the reports provide significant additional information and that the note on the video clip will assist the parties and the panel in its evaluation of the video recording. On 13th November, the trial panel ordered the parties and the registry's Witness Protection and Support Unit to facilitate a familiarization process for the witnesses so they know the courtroom, are familiar with certain processes, and know the parties involved. The panel further asked that the witnesses be provided with their prior statements. The panel rejected the prosecution's request to allow for a preparation meeting with each witness on the basis that the events at issue took place in April 23, the witnesses called by the prosecution have been recently interviewed, and as such, the events are fresh on the witnesses' minds. In the trial of Hashim Thaci, Kadri Veseli, Jakub Krasniqi and Recep Selimi, the trial panel on 11th November rejected a request by the defense to be allowed to appeal a decision by the panel to admit into evidence the testimony of 6 witnesses in written form only. The panel was of the view that the issues the defense raised were a mere disagreement with the panel's previous decision to admit said evidence. On 13th November, the panel granted a request by Victims' Counsel to allow for a variation of protective measures in regards to a participating victim to specific authorities. The panel found that the requested disclosure of the victim's identity and status to the mentioned authority will not pose a risk to the victim or their family. On 13th November, the trial panel ordered the continued detention of Jakub Krasniqi and Recep Selimi, finding that the risks that the accused may obstruct the progress of proceedings and/or commit further crimes continued to exist. The panel was of the view that in light of the ongoing nature of the trial, the names and personal details of certain sensitive witnesses have been and will continue to be disclosed, which increases the risk of sensitive information becoming known to members of the public. In this context, the panel found that the release of an accused with such information would not be conducive to the effective protection of witnesses who are yet to testify. Regarding the conduct of Mr. Salimi in the detention facilities, the panel recalled its finding that it appears that Mr. Salimi disclosed privileged information to unauthorized third parties, which reinforced the panel's finding that the release of Mr. Salimi constitutes a risk of obstruction with the progress of proceedings. So far, 103 witnesses testified in court in this case. The next hearing in the Thaci et al. Trial is scheduled for Monday, 18th November, starting at 9 in the morning. In other news, Kosovo Specialist Chambers President Ekaterina Trendafilova on Tuesday met with Kosovo civil society and with journalists online. During these events, she provided an update on the status of the cases currently before the court, and she answered questions. In her discussion with civil society, President Trendafilova was, among other things, asked about court sessions which are closed to the public. Emphasizing the importance of transparency, she explained the different measures which are taken by the judges to ensure that proceedings are as public as possible, and also explained that when sessions are closed to the public, it is done for the protection of witnesses. This was all from me. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to respond.